It's the Real Estate Podcast, brought to you by ANZ Home Loans for financial well-beings.
And welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Breakfast as we look at your local real estate market, doing that every day of the week, as heard on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts and Amazon. Hope you're having a fantastic weekend. If you're diving into your breakfast, I'm looking forward to pancakes as soon as I'm done here and a nice coffee. Absolutely parched this morning. Now, it's been a big week, especially in the US. The Democrats' convention, of course. Kamala Harris, I think she's on her way to becoming the next president of the United States. Donald Trump isn't too happy at the moment. And the local real estate market here isn't very happy either, from people trying to buy houses. Underquoting property prices is back in the news. The ABC yesterday ran a story about a couple searching for their first home in Melbourne. Scarlett and Andrew have learnt the hard way that they need to add about 20% to every listing that they see. Every house they say they like goes for at least 200 grand more than the price range. And they are among many hopeful buyers attending auctions just like this weekend, only to see prices soar beyond their reach. Underquoting is a real problem for people trying to buy homes. Very, very frustrating. And in competitive markets like Melbourne and Sydney, it just adds to the whole sort of stress level of trying to buy a property in the first place.
Ready to step up your property knowledge? Access powerful insights with us.
We have seen, a full recovery of Australia's property prices. We've seen house prices increase for the sixth consecutive quarter in a row, units for the fifth consecutive quarter in a row, and this is for across the combined capitals. So it does mean we do have record pricing for houses and units across the combined capitals. But I think the key difference here is price growth is decelerating, and that means prices are rising, but not rising as rapidly as what we had been recording. And interestingly, it has been a little bit more pronounced for unit prices. So, for example, unit prices across the combined capitals grew 4 times slower than the previous quarter, and it was the weakest quarterly outcome since early 2023. So I think, it does showcase that generally the slowdown is now on, the brakes are being applied in terms of price growth. And, when you look back over the last couple of years, the level of price growth that we've seen coming out of some of our markets is really unsustainable. And we think about, the damage to our hip pockets at the moment. I think all Australians are doing it tough financially.
Well, it gives us something to talk about, doesn't it? Because over the last 5 years, it's been an incredible seesaw of highs and lows. And boy, the troughs are obviously, you're monitoring all of this and thinking, gee whiz, did we get close on that call? Maybe not so much. Oh, we got it just about absolutely bang on with that call. So, sometimes we win, sometimes we lose. But, it's a constant trying to be right across all of this information, the shifting landscape, as we call it.
Absolutely. And we have to remember that there are diverse conditions. And the way I would describe Australia's housing market at the moment is multi-speed. And it's quite often you do see a multi-speed market, but we've certainly got some cities seeing a greater slowdown than others, and others that continue to buck the trend. I think, Sydney is one of those interesting ones where we saw house prices have risen $220,000 since the end of 2022. But we have seen a rapid slowdown now in price growth, and unit prices in Sydney, they actually fell over the quarter. And that is the first quarterly fall that we've seen for Sydney's unit market in a year and a half. So really showcases changed conditions are unravelling across some of our cities.
Yeah, and if you have a look at Canberra and Melbourne, they are, to your point, bucking the trend and moved into a recovery phase.
It does appear so. Canberra and Melbourne have been fascinating in terms of their market dynamics, and I would particularly say so for Melbourne. What you normally find is Melbourne and Sydney price cycles follow one another quite closely. They're correlated, but that hasn't been the case. Melbourne has pretty much underperformed relative to all other capital cities since 2020, so since the beginning of the pandemic. And it's really been an unusual kind of 18 months to 2 years where we did see prices fall in Melbourne. And then for the last 18 months, they've kind of gone sideways. They've really had seen no movement in price, which is, I cannot stress how unusual that is for a capital city and particularly for a city like Melbourne, to be performing in this really kind of stable way in terms of its pricing.
We are more than just a real estate podcast. Follow each week all of the main talking points and know your property.
Okay, so you mentioned that there was a little bit of a backlash from real estate agents. What were they saying to you?
One of the first films, the second film I made, was with actors pretending to be real estate agents protesting the house sale. So when I made that film, I sent it to 2,500 real estate agents around the country. It took me about 6 hours to send the emails, and the most common response was unsubscribe. I kind of initiated the backlash, so it's partly my fault. But some of the real estate agents got the joke, some of them didn't.
I got to ask, the relationship between you and the real estate industry. I mean, how is that? Is it still fractured?
Well, once I sold, and it was quite a little bit below what I'd hoped a year ago. The market was different, and the market's gone soft, so let's just keep that out there. But I did get quite a few abusive emails from real estate agents after that, yeah.
Okay, so some of them lashed out, but I get the sense that you appreciate the real estate agents a little bit more now, perhaps.
Look, I do.
Say yes.
Them.
Say yes. It's your opportunity here, Brett.
Well, no, I do, but I don't want to put sellers off, because I think a normal seller who isn't an idiot like me could sell their house very easily. So I don't think that it's a black and white situation. Like, I definitely think if you want to sell your house and you're willing to put in the work, as in following up and doing all those sort of things, it should be very easy. It's only because I was a bit of an idiot and I made all these films. It's like, I'm not the example that you want to put out there for sellers. I do appreciate what real estate agents do. Yes, I think for anyone who just wants to just hand it over and let it happen, 100%. But if you feel like you want to sell it yourself and you want to avoid the costs, yes, also you can do it. So it's yes to both sides of the argument.
So I mentioned the median house price is just over $1 million at the moment. Unit prices, there's some pretty good value in the median unit range. Just talk to that, because I think you said just over 500,000.
Early to mid 500s, it's lingering around, and the supply for that is as well. What we're finding is there's a lot of owner occupiers moving back into lifestyle sort of living, opposed to townhouses and courtyard homes. Most Canberrans tend to have a property down the coast, and if they're downsizing, I guess they go into a unit in the city and have it as a halfway home, which it seems to be the trend.
Yeah, so the downsizers, they're coming from different areas. Are you getting any downsizers that are coming interstate at all?
I'll tell you what, the last 4 sales I've personally had over 3 million, they've all been from the Blue Mountains, every single one of them. And they're just moving from lifestyle blocks, acreage, homes that they built 20, 30 years ago, and they're just coming closer to family and just an easier lifestyle. In 15 years, I've never seen 3 in a row from the Blue Mountains, so they're doing well.
So talk a little bit about the upsizes as well. So that's the downsize market. What is happening with people looking for bigger properties?
There's quite a few vendors of mine at the moment as well, where they've had the odd 2-3 quotes from builders for extensions, renovations or knockdowns, and they just don't see the value. So they just bite the bullet and try and upsize completely, with obviously buying a new home. And that tends to be happening throughout the whole year from early Jan to now. It's just people just don't want to commit commit. Then they have to jump into a rental property. There's another cost. Obviously, move twice, sometimes 3 times. And we're just finding it. It's the proof's in the pudding with the recent sales for finished properties, where the majority of them have come from original or homes that need extension or improvements, and they've just jumped the gun and just gone into the bigger home. There has been a lack of stock throughout the Canberra market for a while as well, and you see a lot more people wanting to upsize into a finished product. And I think the reality of it is it's just the cost of building. People don't want to commit to it because they can never get a fixed contract from builders these days.
And what about the land release? Because there's a little bit of that's gone on. So what, people are buying the land and maybe just sitting on the land for a while?
Yeah, again, good question. So we've got a few properties, blocks of land on the market at the moment. Typical story, vendor buys it at a ballot. They want to build their dream home. It just comes down to commitment with builders. They're just very concerned about sort of committing to a build contract. On the flip side of that is the established stock, the ones that are turnkey ready, they're never short of a buyer that's ready to go. You know, the way things have gone in the last sort of 2-3 years, those families that bought those blocks of land, they've probably made 10-20% on them as well. So they are selling them for a bit of a profit, but then obviously putting the proceeds towards a finished home, usually in the next street from where they've bought the block.
Gain insights with exclusive conversations from real estate professionals about buying, selling and investing across Australia.
Groceries are hard. I've got a family of 6, so there's my wife and now 4 kids. Even we're sort of feeling the pinch. We've got a couple of kids in private schools and the grocery bills aren't getting any lower.
Very difficult, as I mentioned, to get into the property market. I mean, you wouldn't want to be trying to save, would you, in this current climate for a first-time property?
No, it's rough, and rentals are still very, very tight, and rental prices keep going up. It's not looking good, to be fair.
Now, we've been, of course, talking all about management rights and how people can get into this industry. And we're going to be stepping over a few different things this morning, like and this is going to be interesting for a lot of people, and that is the difference in management rights between the different states, because they do vary.
Yeah, that's right. That's probably one of the biggest differences between the states is the contract term for management rights and the separation of powers. So those are legislative differences that make a very large difference overall to how management rights operate between the states. So in Queensland, for instance, for accommodation modules, you can have a contract term of up to 25 years, whereas in, say, Victoria and New South Wales, they can be like 3 years or 5 years as a maximum term. So that means basically you're buying an asset that lives for however long that contract term is. You can top that contract up. Obviously, there's a lot more certainty when you're buying management rights in Queensland. And as a result of that, the majority of management rights do exist in Queensland. I believe there's about 4,000 management rights in Australia, 4,500 perhaps. And in Queensland, there are 3,500 of those schemes. So a lot of those management rights exist in Queensland because of the stable contract conditions that exist in this state.
Yeah, Burwood's seen a big change. There's been a lot of high-end properties, people reinvesting into older homes and upgrading them significantly. So in the last sort of 12 months, we've seen a big increase in price with the demand. I think it's one of these areas that even though some markets have a downturn, Burwood's just always been consistent and it's always held its own. And now we're just seeing a significant jump in the values.
Now, I mentioned the high-end properties hitting the market, which has further boosted the area's median price. What are you seeing around that? Because I think it's been reported that some apartments have been popping up, some luxury apartments. Is that right?
There have been, there's been a bit of a change with a lot of the developments before they were put up there was very large, high volume of units in the high rise, and they were good apartments, but there seems to be a bit of a trend now with people who want to downsize from some of these bigger houses, but they want quality apartments and they want standout apartments. And so, in the last sort of 12 months or so, we've seen some high-end buildings opposite Burwood Park there, which were units that were built as a premium and they were targeted towards those who were looking to downsize from homes locally, but they don't want to leave the area because they enjoy the shops and the access to transport.
Have you had these vendors that have just been sitting on the fence waiting for spring to happen?
Yeah, there are some out there that definitely wait for the warmer months if they've got the swimming pool, just they feel the attractions there with the house, particularly, the appeal to families. It's a great time of year that people get out with their kids. The atmosphere at open homes is a lot brighter as you come into spring in the warmer months than what it is in winter. I think it's just the warmth and people standing around talking outside, which is a nice vibe.
Now, the reason that we decided to chat with you this morning is sort of all based on this 35.8% increase in just 12 months. How surprising, if at all, was that number when you saw that? To just sort of go, well, I'm not surprised, or gee, that really does surprise me just how much that's growing.
I knew it had gone up substantially, it's gone up a lot in the last couple of years, but I knew the 12 months did see significant growth. I think that it was higher than what we all expected, and that was mainly because of these high-end of properties and a bit of the changing of the guard. There's been a lot of larger long-term family homes where people have held them for 30, 40 years come onto the market, and they're sort of once-in-a-lifetime transactions for families.
What about the demographic? I mean, what is the typical type of person who is buying into Burwood? In other words, is it their second, third home? Give us a little bit of a breakdown on that.
More recently, a lot of the buyers are younger families looking to get into the area for the long-term family homes. But we've also seen a rise in the parents helping their kids get into the market. Just recently, I sold a home to a young fellow, had his parents there at the auction, and they just wanted him to be nearby. I think that they're hoping for some grandkids in the future, and they want him to be close to them. So it's a bit of a mix in buyers.
I mean, yeah, 3.16 million with the median house price. I mean, you've got to have parents that are pretty well heeled to say, well, Johnny and Mary, we'd love you to stay close to mum and dad. Here's a pile of money. Go out and buy yourself a home.
A lot of them aren't first home buyers. A lot of them are already in the market. And so they could be selling locally to come from, where we're seeing, good units now sort of in the $1 million range around Burwood. And then we're seeing semi-detached cottages. Ashfield has also become a strong market where they've been in the high 1s to 2 for semis. And we're seeing a lot of those people sell and upgrade into houses to get into something larger. So the step up for a lot of people coming from a smaller home into Burwood is probably not a step up that a lot of people are expecting.
We connect you to the best real estate information across Australia. The Real Estate Podcast.